Hi, I'm Masaba Gupta. Each week on How I Masaba from Luminary, I talk to one incredible woman about how they do, well, them. These are the inspirational mindsets, necessary daily practices, and only funny in hindsight experiences that have defined and continue to drive our culture's greatest. For a public figure, there's an unwritten rule that says their personal life is confined to some extremely private moments, and everything else that they go through, they do so in the public eye. Social media is just another platform where there's almost an expectation for these public figures to give people not just a glimpse, but a window into their lives. Some embrace this level of access completely, while others do so with a bit of trepidation. My guest today, however, is someone who has managed to set her own rules. As a creator and one of the most recognizable faces in the digital ecosystem, she has carved a niche for herself on her own terms. She wears her heart on her sleeve and is open about her need to set boundaries. A vocal advocate for mental health awareness, especially in the entertainment industry, she has never shied away from using her platform to push a cause she believes in. She's also one of the funniest people I know. Today, I'm speaking to Mallika Dua. I'm going to start with something that you've mentioned a few times in your interviews, that you think of yourself as an actor and not a comic. Now, with actors in our industry, there's just so much said about how people break into the industry, right? With you, obviously, you broke into pop culture through tremendous success on social media. And then, almost as a natural progression, the acting came, and that happened. When you started making videos online, was this always the path that you had planned?
I actually had no plan absolutely. I was quietly working as a copywriter in Delhi, and I had a degree in theater in acting because I always loved being on stage and I loved performing. That said, there was no industry like this back then. Even up until 2014, there was nothing that was happening, and then 2014 afterwards, there was maybe two or three. What do you say, comedy collectives that were doing things online. But I was very happy just doing my job, getting my salary, and then doing theater whenever I had the time. And it just so happened that I happened to write and act in one video online. And that just went viral because I didn't know that's how the internet behaves. And things just followed after that. For me, it was a natural progression of that Kira that I had inside me. The same antics I do on stage, I found myself doing those or doing those online. And I called myself an actor first because I never really nurtured a dream of being a comedian, mainly because the role models that we had for comedians were very different. They were often stereotyped. They were very brilliant and talented, but they found themselves being stereotyped, into just one kind of role or one kind of film or that stock character that the narrative is going somewhere, but this character is doing their own thing only in the film. Like that was comedy. So I never really thought of myself as a comedian. It was always that I'm performing. Even if it's a caricature and not a character, it's still a part of developing that. And I counted it as acting more than anything else.
Right. Got it. So, you said something about salary, right? And how does one make that shift in their head, right? When you're making money every month, it's coming into your account and there's that security, there's that stability. But how do you make that mental shift when you do something like you're doing now, which is very kind of, acha, kaam mil gaya to mil gaya, paise aa gaye. Otherwise, you're just kind of, you're auditioning or you're trying to land a gig. I mean, it's the same with most parts of this industry. So how do you make that mental shift to be okay with that uncertainty?
Right, to begin with, I wasn't earning much at all in advertising. I was barely earning anything. But I think when you don't know what you can make as a freelancer, you look at the security of a job as obviously a better option, and understandably so. So in fact, when I had a meeting with this agency, they wanted to rep me, and I didn't even know what that is about. I was like, "Ye kya hota hai?" Like I thought we do stupid things and we go home and then we do actual jobs. And they were like, "No, no, no, no. See this company, this AIB, this guy, this comedian, they make this, that." And I was like, and I genuinely had very practical questions because I was like, "Listen, this is my salary right now. Will I make this every month plus rent?" And that person who I was meeting started laughing. They said, "Oh, of course." And I didn't believe them at all. I thought they were just pitching. So I actually had an arrangement before I moved to Bombay where I told them, I said, listen, this is my rent, and I can only take 20,000 from my parents for the next 2-3 months. Because at that point, my father had lost his job a few years ago, like on mainstream television because of the climate and everything. So there wasn't like money coming in, there was just savings. So I was like, yeah, I can't take money from home. So you have to do one thing, and I actually got that arrangement where I told him, I said, every month you have to transfer 55,000 to my account, which you keep deducting from what you make for me as an agency. And they were giggling when I asked for that, but they said, of course we will and all. I said, but I need this. Please try to understand, because I have no reserves and I have to pay rent and everything in Bombay. So I actually had that arrangement for the first 3 months. After which, of course, God was very kind and work took off, etc. But like, I give this advice to everyone. Like, if you are scared of losing the stability and security of a salary, then you must try a hybrid model for a while, because no one deserves to have either their financial independence taken away for the sake of artistic freedom, or the latter, or artistic freedom taken away for the sake of financial independence. And this is one way where you can kind of have both till you know which path you actually like.
No, that's good, because I think then the shift sort of has happened in your head already, right? You're just like,
Yeah,
that's taken care of, and now I can focus on my work.
correct.
Good
Yeah.
advice. Good advice. So, Mallika, you and your peers, okay, were among the first generation of so called celebrities that broke through almost entirely on social media. It all happened there. Today, a lot of those people are still big on social media, but seem to be focused on stand up or acting, writing, producing, etc. Now, in the age of what we call the creator economy, do you feel like for the longevity of all creators, you have to branch into more traditional forms of entertainment, or do you still see social media as a means to an end?
That's such a good question. I think it depends on what your personality is. If you're like me, who is actually a major introvert and only does all sorts of crazy things online, I think you have to have a form of passive income. You have to have, a plan B of some sort. That also employs your skills, but doesn't require your mood or personality to be at its best, at all times. Because I'm not someone who is that way built for the internet, where like I'm not on all the time every day. It's very spontaneous, and spontaneity just shows up when it feels like,
Wow,
right?
I could never tell. I can never tell that you'd have that side to you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm so like infrequent, that's why I'm not as consistent. But there are some people whose personalities, like what you see online, which is why I think I call myself an actor more than a creator, because it's a different human being. Like some people, like especially with YouTubers and stuff, what you see them as is what you get. And I think for those people showing up as they are might actually benefit, like, and being online itself and putting that same content across different platforms may help, because they're just only getting more audience. But for people who, I mean, I've found this, that as you grow older, like I think I was in my mid-20s when I started doing this, and now I'm not. And I feel very differently. I don't have that desire to put myself on display all the time. I don't have that desire to be very feisty and vociferous about my opinions. I still have them. But somehow, after a certain age, there's a shift where it becomes very internal, right?
Yeah,
So
you
what do you
rather
do then?
share within a small circle of people or your, close loved ones, whatever.
Correct. So I find for people like myself, who I think grew up pre-internet and post-internet, there has to be something else that we find value in professionally, which is obviously a segue, or which is obviously a branch of what we've done online. Like, I think you're a great example of that, right? Like you started with one thing, but you've also done multiple other things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's just not sustainable mentally to just your audience will want to do the same thing and serve them the same thing over and over. But for your
How many
satisfaction,
tunics can I
you
make?
या एग्जैक्टली राइट
Yeah.
और फिर वो कॉपी होंगे और फिर कोई और करेगा फिर आपका इंटरेस्ट चला जाएगा सो आई थिंक फॉर योर सेक like as an artist it's important to try different things. I don't think you can plan the money as such unless you have a business acumen, which I don't have. So I just I think for people like me, I always say ki brush up your skills, keep doing that, keep upskilling if you can, because if business is not where your heart lies or where your brain lies, then be so skilled that you're irreplaceable in that department.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, there used to be a time when people said, I'm not going to have plan B because I want plan A to work so well. But I don't think that works anymore. You have to
Yeah,
have plan A, B, C, possibly all happening in tandem, like, just
absolutely.
together.
Also, I think it's important to now note that earlier, till a few years ago, we were creating for platforms, right? But what's happening now, a lot of times online, is that the platforms and the algorithms are kind of dictating how we are supposed to create, right? So the idiom changes overnight, and I find myself a little paralyzed when it comes to, say, reels or like, outfit transition, ye wo. Suddenly, yeah, I can't do that. But that doesn't mean I don't like to dress up. That doesn't mean I don't like know how to and stuff. So I realized that too much dependence on one platform is maybe not such a good thing. And I think we have to keep living our lives, like our private lives, and enriching them whilst displaying our public ones.
I actually posted something very similar to what you're saying, but I said that we spend so much of our time, especially like people like you and me who are in the public sort of domain, we spend so much of our lives just feeding the public image. You know, we spend
Yep.
maybe 2% of that feeding what happens behind the scenes. And that's what's
Yeah.
going to last, right? Like your public image, the validation that comes from external people will keep shifting from the next person to the next person. What are you doing when you come back home? Is that giving you peace? I
Yeah.
say that to a lot of young people.
Like, are you at ease with who you are? Because I see this in a lot of creators, right? Because it's very easy dopamine, na? Ki maine kuch dala, X number of X lakhs of people laughed at it. So it's funny, and so I feel good about myself today. And then if they don't, you go down this whole self-doubt spiral. But again, I go back to age because I find myself enjoying things privately more now, somehow. It's not really good for business, but I'm hoping to find some middle ground here.
Just once you hit 30, you're like, listen, this can all happen in private. It's fine.
Yeah. Everything can happen in private.
Everything can
Yeah.
happen in private.
Like rich and anonymous is the new goal. It used to be rich and famous. Now it's just rich and anonymous. Yeah.
Rich and anonymous. I like this. But tell me, because you found so much of your success online, I'm just going to talk about that a little bit more. How do you tell yourself? Because, okay, so I have a theory that there's a big difference between success and fame. Okay. And in today's day and age, what's happened is that it's kind of become kind of interlinked, and somebody who's just famous for being famous is famous, and somebody who's very, very good at what they're doing is not necessarily famous, but they are very successful. Do you draw that line in your head? Because it's very easy for again, people like you and me to be happy with what we put out on social media and then say 10 likes, or not 10, well, that's rubbish these days, 10,000 likes. Our reel has been shared so and so times. We're only checking insights. How do you protect yourself from insights and the difference between success and fame?
I'm a very extreme case. I'm very violently against insight because I feel it takes us back to that time where we were slotted into the cutoff system in school. कि इसके marks अच्छे हैं तो ये smart है, ये बेवकूफ है. But it's actually just a metric. It's just a unit that you've invented to make your life easy as a
Yeah,
brand or as
yeah,
an
yeah.
agency. Because that saves you the work of seeing us as individuals and analyzing us. So you put us into one box. And I actually just resist that. So every time there is a branded inquiry, पहले तो वो बाद में insights मांगते थे ना. Nowadays there's a new thing where give us insights before also. And like if you want the numbers, there are a lot of numbers out there, right? There's a lot of people doing work that like pleases the insights or whatever. And like I won't be able to do that. And I can't guarantee that either. Purely because I wasn't born out of that system, right? I just picked up my phone and I started doing things basis what I'd learned and experienced. And that's kind of my process even now. So I feel that if I try to pander to the whole insight and numbers game, I don't do very well, and it distracts me and it discourages me. So for me, like what you said, I very consciously try and remind myself of what success is, most people don't, like most people see a person's growth as अच्छा इसके इतने followers बढ़े, they won't see कि इसकी health इतनी better हुई, they won't see इसकी mental health इतनी better हुई, or did this person change any patterns in their personality through the years, did this person manage to keep their sanity intact despite the fame or whatever. those are just our metrics of success are very
Yeah,
warped
yeah.
at this point. So I keep reminding myself that I'm like, the actual work of growth is not something that can be tracked by insights, right? And if there are people who find you inspiring or worth following or worth listening to or whatever, it may have reasons that go far beyond just that one video that you posted, right? And everything cannot be quantified. So I don't believe in numbers equaling success. I get why brands would, but I'm like, you do you, because I think this whole system was born out of people who did not conform to being boxed and, being turned into a number. So I'm like, but it's going back to that now again. But I think that's just a sign for us that now look for whatever is next.
But you have films, you have shows, you have web series, everything under your belt. I want to talk to you about your process, right? People may or may not know that you are actually a theater major. So the world of acting is obviously not new to you. What I really want to get into is the fact that as a creator, you shoulder a lot of creative responsibility on your own, right? It's just you or maybe a small team, I'm sure. But being on a set of a film or a show is obviously very, very different. There's just so many people, right? There's like 35 people telling you the same thing on a set. Um, but it's also a very collaborative thing, right? There's a director, there's a producer, there's a first AD, etc., etc. Was that a big transition for you to just sort of also let go of some of that creative control? Because what I was doing on the sets of Masaba was that I said, ये cushion यहाँ पे ठीक नहीं है, इसको हटाओ. And they're like, you're not the art director. And I'm like, I'm used to doing that for my own brand, right? And I'm like, ये लड़की का costume इतना खराब क्यों है? And they were like, you're not on costume on this set. Could you cut that? Could you break that link and collaborate?
Initially, I had a little bit of a tough time where I would, I came from no training in this industry, right? Usually people start small, वो कुछ करते हैं, फिर वो AD करते हैं, कुछ और करते हैं. I literally just landed ऐसे. So I landed as a real idealist. Like I didn't know how tough it is, right? It's complete chaos out here. And it is what it is, you know? And it takes a few years and a few burned bridges before you realize that there's no point trying to change anything. You literally just have to look at your department and bounce unless you are also the co-producer on this. So initially when I came, I was very like, what is this writing, yaar? What is this? ऐसे थोड़ी कोई करता है. ऐसे थोड़ी कोई, like I was in my audience will not believe I do this and all that. And I've been lucky that I've been told to rewrite my lines all the time, every time I'm on set. Because unfortunately, I don't get non-comedy work as such. So when it's comedy, I'm asked to just make it my own, So that way I get that freedom. But so I have to really talk to myself and tell myself that, do not comment on the styling, do not comment on something else. Because, see, I'm a creative person and these are my interests anyway. I'm interested in like what clothes I'm wearing. I'm interested in how things are written and, things like that. But एक तो comedy में इतना कुछ ज़्यादा होता नहीं where you have to get into it. It's just character clothing. The lines I'm always told to make my own. But I stopped getting into things like logic now. Okay, इस character का arc क्या है and all. Like now I laugh at myself when I used to do that stuff back in the day. I really used to like when people used to pitch a script saying कि आपका ना ये track है इस episode में. मेरे को लगता था कि actually में track है. वो ट्रैक नहीं होता, वो बस एक आई थिंक क्लोजअप होता है और 3 seconds उसको सब कैरेक्टर ट्रैक समझते हैं. But so I've realized one thing, that you just show up, do your best, and you bounce, because if you put too much of your expectation into it, it's a machinery. There's like 30,000 other people controlling it. There's no point trying to expect the world. And if you really do, then you have to become a producer, which I don't want to right now. So
Thank God. It's a
yeah,
hard
yeah.
and I think also a very thankless job.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of it takes a very thick skin, and I don't have that right now. But I have to say, I actually like being on set where the burden of writing is on someone else, and I show up as a performer, and then I can elevate the script as opposed to making something from nothing. I'm a little exhausted with that right now.
That's good. That's good. I feel like It was it was very nice for me as well because, especially on Modern Love, actually, because I also wasn't playing myself, right? And I
Yeah.
was not like, "Arey, ye lehenge ka latkan kharab lag raha hai," it's not into it. But I just found it meditative. I actually told someone that I said, I find being on set so meditative because I'm not bothered about the back end. I am just performing and I'm just wearing beautiful clothes and glamorous makeup, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, it is very, I mean, actors का job सबसे easy होता है set पे. And like, I mean, it is difficult in its own way, but it's also very like, when you're doing your job, it's, you get to be one with whatever it is that makes you
That
good at
makes
your
you
job, and it's something inside.
completely. Malika, tell me about the fact that you don't like networking because welcome to the club. Because I hate networking. I absolutely, and I know a lot of people think that I'm like a, you know, social butterfly and all of that, but I completely dislike that. And I feel like I was telling my mother, I said, "You're so lucky. आपके टाइम में तो निकल गया, आप अच्छे एक्टर थे, मुझे तो नेटवर्किंग करनी पड़ेगी and this and that." And then I said my father also just played cricket and didn't talk to anyone and walked off and into the
Yeah.
dressing room, and it's fine because he's such a great cricketer.
Yeah.
But my mother also told me that, listen, networking से कुछ काम नहीं मिलता कभी. It's not like you'll walk into a party and someone will offer you work. But what's your take on networking? Because you are also in that stage in your career, I'm sure, where you're meeting lots of people, you're doing multiple things. Do you believe in, okay, let my work speak for itself? Or do you think that it's important to also do that networking even if you dislike it?
I would love to be able to network, but it is so far away from who I am as a person. It's so far. And for me, even showing up for a party that I'm invited to, I need to have a few shots to like exist in that party, which I can't anymore, you know. But I've seen where networking, like hardcore networking, lands people. But I also have to say that I don't know if it's them going way out of their comfort zone. It's just their personality to be this overly social, on DMs with everybody, constantly WhatsApping people, seeing them at events, posing with them, flattering them. Like, I feel that if that's what comes to you naturally, then आप ही कर सकते हो. But like, I could never ever. Like, I've tried doing this thing where you message your director and tell them you like their work, but then they'll tell you they like your work and finish. उसके बाद क्या होगा? Oh, really? I really want to work with you. But at the end of the day, I really don't know what gets people those gigs, whether it's casting people liking you, whether it is, I don't know, you producing a short film where you show some other skill that you didn't have. But I agree with your mom, who's incredible, by the way, that ये नहीं होता कुछ beyond the point. At least for people who are not naturally like hyper social, it can only get you like so much कि अच्छा किसी ने आपको देख लिया. So one thing I made it a point to do was when I moved back last year to Bombay after the pandemic and after everything that happened in our family, I made it a point to message everybody because I felt that people didn't know that I was willing to work again. You know, they didn't know that I was okay or like was I up to take up any work or stuff like that. So I was like, ये करना पड़ेगा ताकि लोगों को ये ना लगे कि मतलब काम पे ही नहीं आएंगी वापस. But for me, I can operate from that logic. But for me, just networking, like I've tried 3 or 4 PR companies, okay? And I don't keep them for more than 2 months because I'm like, I can't. से नहीं होगा. मैं किसी से बात नहीं कर सकती. मैं तैयार नहीं हो सकती. मैं जिम तो जाते हैं मेरे को कोई देखे ही ना बेटर है. Like this animal is not for me. So I have to
Hmm.
just be okay with who I am.
Hmm. But that's nice that you thought that people should know that I'm ready. That leads me to my next question. You spoke about this event that happened. We all sort of saw it unravel on social media as well with both your parents, who, by the way, I think whenever I see a picture of your mom, I just feel so much joy because she was just such. I mean, I never met her, but whatever photos that I
Yeah.
see, it's just so much joy. But tell me, as somebody who is inherently always looking for the funny side of a situation, right? That's a part of your job, the humor in everything, how to make light of everything. How do you make light of an event like this? in your personal life? Or do you make light? Or do you say that I'm going to grieve and I'm going to go through my emotion the way I should? And you're not trying very hard to make it funny or comical and brush it under the carpet. How was that for you?
I think we did equal parts of both because my sister and I, we have a very naturally dark sense of humor. Okay. And it's so dark that we can't share it online. But I think we get this from our dad, where चाहे कितना भी बुरा कुछ हो ना, you can still laugh at it. You can still like find that light inside you and go like, क्या है ये? This is a circus at the end of the day that we're experiencing. Of course, when you're going through something, you don't find anything funny. But when you have enough distance from it, and these things exist side by side, I don't think there's any replacement for processing what you're feeling. And you have to process that every day because there'll be days it won't show up and there'll be days it'll hit you in the face when you just least expect it, right? So I make it, and I'm very lucky, I have to say, because my sister's actually a clinical psychologist. So it's always been a very open conversation in our house, mental health, you know? And I've never been afraid of expressing myself. I was regular with therapy throughout. And my sister and I, when we talk about it, we have a very healthy and dark sense of humor when we talk about things. Because how else do you cope, you know? And I think we get this from my dad. He would make fun of everything. Like he was a very serious person in his job, but he was very irreverent. And we were lucky enough that he left us with all of that inside us. So it's both. It's, yeah.
That's amazing. That's also something that I was told very young, that if you can laugh at yourself and everything that's happening around you, you will emerge someday very strong. But but
Yeah,
but I really
absolutely.
want to. I was telling someone, I said, if I could be like, who's the Time Magazine Person of the Year? This is for last year, by the way. I would say Mallika Dua, because I was just like,
Oh
no, really. I
my.
mean, I think I give your example to anyone. Some girl comes to me crying, somebody comes to me complaining about something. I'm like, go to Mallika Dua's Instagram right now. If she can make light of that situation, you have no business, you know? So it's just, I don't know. It's just, I see, and I never used to, like, I look forward to your posts now because I just feel like there's so much hope. And it's not fake. It's not you trying to be someone else. So congratulations on that. That's a huge, huge.
Thank you. And I have to say that, I mean, I'm not just saying this to reciprocate, but I genuinely look to you for all the motivation that I need because when it comes to being healthy, looking after myself, having a schedule, I'm nowhere near that. I see you're very organized and, you know,
Too
I think you're a
organized.
workaholic, which
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
So I try and tell myself कि हर कोई नहीं कर पाता इतना कुछ एक दिन में. But I very closely observed your fitness journey for many years. And I know how much you like food. So I always tell myself कि she eats. I've seen in her stories of fried chicken भी खा रही थी, but वो फिर smash करती है जाके gym में. So you
जाके,
better go, there's no
हाँ,
excuse.
वो बस एक
Yeah,
बार उठ के जिम चले जाओ, बाकी everything will take care of
correct.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere, you never regret a workout. So that's what I tell
Never.
myself. I'm like, you must go.
हाँ, उतना
Yeah,
कर लो, बाकी enjoy life and smile through it.
absolutely.
Okay, you've spoken about the need for all creative people to spend the time to just work on their skills, brush up their skills. You said that before itself. Um, but as someone who's been through the grind of feeding the algorithm as well, how do you find the bandwidth to do that, to brush up your skills? Do you spend time? We're just talking about routines right now, but do you make time actively for that?
I don't currently, and I'm struggling with it because I think we're all somewhere stuck in a very messy addiction cycle, especially people whose jobs don't require them to step away from the internet, like literally. So what I find myself doing is I think about it a lot, but then I end up scrolling, you know, infinitely. But I do feel that, like, I really respect people in this profession who take a break and who go abroad to study, or you know, who have the guts to announce I'm vanishing. Or there's a stand-up comic friend of mine, and he said, and I was amazed when I was chatting with him because, and he's one of the top stand-up comics in India, okay? And he said कि मेरी तो पूरी टीम को पता है कि मैं कोई ब्रांडेड वर्क, कोई फिल्म, कुछ नहीं लूंगा मैं. उनको पता है, कुछ लाते भी नहीं है मेरे पास जब मैं लिख रहा होता हूँ. And that day he put up a story saying, this is for everyone. I will not be taking up any branded work, any films, any gains anything till end of 2023. And I'm like, this is amazing, like this is being process driven more than, ki money, ya goal, ya dopamine, ya name and all. I don't have that yet because I got it when I didn't expect it. So I'm still kind of used to like I still feel it can also vanish randomly. So I'm actually working on my relationship with my work where I'm like, it's okay if you step away, and even if you're reading for like 10 days straight, the world will not change. You'll only come back changed and better. But that is a huge thing on my to-do list in life. I think it doesn't happen so easily. We just keep observing those take happen, at least in my world.
I also wanted to ask you, I used to know the stand up comic, and he was telling me, not him actually, his ex wife was telling me that the reason that marriage broke was because at every sort of gathering or public event, or when they were with friends having dinner, he used to make her the butt of all his jokes. Okay. And it was very charming at first, obviously. I think that's also what brought them together. And then eventually it became exhausting because she realized that he was just that fun, charming, cool person using her to crack those jokes. But then at home, he was actually a very dark, almost borderline depressive soul. But how hard or how easy is dating for you? Because you're a public person with a personality, right? But do you feel like when you go on dates, is it weird that you have people come up and be like, "Hey, but I saw that video of yours, and like, can we talk about that?" Or are you able to completely shut that out?
Firstly, I barely go on dates, and when I do, and that's a struggle in itself. But when I do, I think my worry is more like you may expect that funny, crazy, wow, wow girl, but actually, what you'll get is one quiet, shy, reserved, mostly disinterested human being. Like, I'm just like, you don't know who you're gonna get. So, I don't know what you're expecting. And that's one thing. The other is, I think just having to literally, sometimes I prefer dating non-comics because at least there's no pressure, there's no pressure of them judging you professionally, or them, or you even having to, like, I feel I would be a little scared to discuss what is happening work-wise. I don't know, because it's not a very secure group of people, because I think this profession is so new, right? Not comedy, but this weird hybrid model, that somewhere the lines are very murky, it's very strange. So, I mean, I have a hard time showing people who I am. Like, before I moved to Bombay, I don't know why I was on some dating app and I found this guy. And we started dating right before I moved to Bombay. And suddenly my life just changed, and I had to do long distance with this guy and try to understand what's going on. Like back then, I was like, I don't want to date a normie. Like that sounds horrible. But what I
Normie?
mean is a person who's, yeah, what I mean is a person who's not from the camera facing weird industry. Because I was like, वो तो समझ ही नहीं पाएगा मेरे साथ क्या हो रहा है, you know? Because he used to ask me what happened today. And I used to be like, मैं क्या बताऊं? Like, where do I start? Like, how do I even express what the hell happened?
Kya nahi hua
Um,
is the question today.
क्या नहीं हुआ? And a lot of times he thinks that I don't do anything and I just get paid. I'm like, firstly, no. Secondly, maybe sometimes. Thirdly, you will not understand what this entails. And a lot of our arguments would be, I'd be like, you're busy, you don't take my calls. And or I'm like, no, why can't you take off today? I asked him. He's like, can you miss a shoot? I'm like, it's very different. You don't understand. Shoot is not what. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's the same thing. So dating was a bit like that. Now, just meeting people, I'm like, my, like, I think now my criteria has little to do with my professional life. But now I'm stuck in a place where I'm like, how do I date someone who didn't know my parents? Then you don't know me. So now it's that reluctance has just set in. But then obviously my therapist is like, they'll know them through you and all. I'm like, maybe. Let's see. I don't know.
Oh, wow. That's a deep one. That's a deep one.
Yeah. It's very deep. I'm just like, nah, maybe I should find someone from high school and just roll with that.
Yeah. Safe, tried and tested.
Yeah, correct.
I'm going to jump into a few questions that I just have to know, which you can treat as Short answers, or you can elaborate, whatever you like. Okay. You are someone that likes new challenges. I want to know, what was the last new skill that you've picked up?
The last new skill that I picked up. It's a great question. I think I would, because a skill takes time to develop. I think I'd call it boxing. Like, though it's been a few years that I've been boxing, but I don't think I'm terrible. Like, for a non-professional person, and I think that's something I like so much that I miss it when I don't do it. And I find myself very interested when I see other people also doing it, and I'm proud of, because there was no physical activity in my childhood. It was just not a part of who I am. So
So
I think
that's
that's one
great.
skill I'm happy.
That's
Yeah.
great that you're picking yourself up now, because some people say that if you never worked out as a kid, you'll never do it once you're like above 25. But you are a live
Oh,
example, obviously, of the fact that this is not true.
I don't do it too well because I saw a story one day said 150 burpees. मैंने कहा ये कौन लोग होते हैं? I can do 30 and I die. Like, who does 150 burpees? Who are these people?
Oh God, no, no, it's tough. It's
I mean, she's
everything.
clearly an athlete. Like, obviously, genetically, she's an athlete, but like, otherwise, also.
Okay, if we had to look behind the curtain, what's the one thing about being a creator that the world doesn't know?
The one thing about being a creator that the world doesn't know is that it's very hard to be one if you're not inherently a narcissist. Because you feel very reluctant putting yourself out there. Your things that motivate you are not those outward things that I want my name everywhere or I want X number of people to like me. It's just a very undescribable feeling that you get. Maybe it's dopamine, I don't know what it is. But people just have this image that anybody who's camera facing is very vain or is very self-obsessed or very narcissistic, and that's not always the case. And that's why I think the same expectations are placed on everyone, that oh ye to itna kar rahi hai, tum se nahi itna kar rahe types. You know, suddenly people realize that your personality plays a big role in what you create.
True. Social media is this weird place where all the feedback gets amplified, the love, the hate, everything. But in real life, what's the weirdest feedback that you've got for one of your performances?
Masaba, there's so many, and all of them have been filtered out, forgotten, whatnot. What is the weirdest thing I've received? Wow. I don't remember the weirdest, but I think the most frequent one is आप स्क्रीन पे तो बड़े मोटे लगते हो बट रियल लाइफ में तो बड़े छोटे से हो आप.
Same. What is with people? They're
I
like,
just don't understand.
oh, you're so petite. Petite.
Yeah, petite. I'm very petite.
Petite.
Yeah, yeah. मतलब ये क्या लॉजिक है भाई? कोई कुछ फीडबैक देने को दे दो.
हाँ, वो बॉडी पे अटके हैं, सारी सारी दुनिया बॉडी पे
Correct.
अटकी है.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first time you got recognized in public.
I was in Khan Market, Delhi ka favorite Khan Market, and just a regular evening, and I was okay. And then there was this guy in a leather jacket walking in front of me, and I was just checking him out like I would. And then we crossed, and then पीछे से आवाज आती है, "Hey, you're that girl in that video, na?" And I'm like, for a second, I was like, concert video. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then he's like, you're damn funny, man. You're so good. I was like, oh, shit, ye kya ho gaya? Like, I couldn't believe it because I was used to my dad being stopped and people talking to him. I was like, mere ko koi rok raha hai? I can't believe this. So it was that. I mean, a couple of times people would come up to me saying, we saw a play. But there was like very handful, like somebody who came twice removed. But this was the first time I was recognized for a video and I was like in shock. I was like, hey, ye kaise ho gaya?
Ye ho gaya, हाँ. That's that. And you're
Yeah.
almost like, are you talking to me? It's just that weird.
I was like shocked. And then I remember just being in Khan Market that day with the widest smile on my face for like the next 2 hours. मैं इतनी खुश थी and घर जाके I'm telling my dad. And he was also so happy. Of course, he was like, हमारी तो जिंदगी ऐसे बीती है types. But I was like, वो आपको पता है क्या हुआ मेरे साथ? So I was very happy.
And last question. What, according to Mallika Dua, is the future of the internet?
Ooh, that's deep.
That's a heavy one. I just thought of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of it.
Wow. I think the future of the internet, very, very simply put, is authenticity, which means that if your authenticity translates to something very prolific where you can keep churning out content, where you have this urge inside you कि मैं चुप ही नहीं हो सकता या हो सकती है, whatever, then that is you. But I feel that people are going to have to increasingly move into niches of who they specifically are. And even if that means that they cannot attract like insane numbers, they will have an audience. Like I feel the internet will always give everyone a voice, but you shouldn't, so long as you don't compare that voice to another person's voice, and you don't quantify it in comparison to another person's. I feel the future of the internet is more and more honesty, because I think people are now starting to get a little jaded with what's going on. Like everything is too curated. See, as everything does, it's going to go in both extremes. It's going to get really bad before it gets anything else. But I do feel that people, like at least for myself, when I go online and when I see everything, the only thing that motivates me to do is speak the truth. It doesn't motivate me to clean up my act and come up as someone too perfect. And at least I'm going more and more in that direction. Maybe the younger ones, like maybe kids who have their phones right now, I don't know what examples they're seeing, what they're going to show up as. But eventually, I think you're going to show up as who you are, whatever that may be.
I think the one thing that I've learned from you now, speaking to you and also sort of following you from afar for so many years, is that you live with so much hope. And I'm not talking about that fraudulent, rubbish intellectual version of hope. You live with the actual human version of hope. And you give that to so many people. You're the daughter of two incredibly powerful, wonderful, gentle people who I admire. And it's an honor to know you. And more importantly, I like that you believe in plan B, C, D, whatever it takes. So, Mallika Dua, whatever it takes, she will do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Masaba. And I have to say, like, beyond cliches, you're an incredibly, incredibly solid girl. And I learn from you every day in ways you also probably don't know. And you're a very, very big inspiration. And you're one of the few people who lets only her work talk.
Yes.
And, doesn't yell from rooftops. Hey,
I have arrived on Viral Bhayani's page.
Correct. जब कोई काम आता है तभी हम मसाबा का नाम सुनते हैं, which is what I like. I'm just like, that's good.
This is nice.
Which is so important. It's rare, right? Like there's.
वरना बेकार में तो PR सब कर रहे हैं ना खुद की.
Correct.
हाँ.
So that's great.
In the next episode of How I Masaba, I am speaking to the globally acclaimed filmmaker Meera Nair.
You were listening to How I Masaba only on Luminary. The podcast is produced by Monisha Singh Katyal and Rainshine Entertainment. Ritika Bajaj is our creative producer and Palash Kulkarni is our executive producer. The research for this episode was done by Anushka Mukherjee. The mix engineer for this episode is Ankit Thakur. Artist management by Versus Entertainment LLP. The music supervisor for the episode is Ankur Srivastav. The episode was recorded at Bayout Studios, Mumbai.